It's that time of the year to meet the new teacher of the year.
The Dan Yorke State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
Great to have you aboard on this Monday evening. We're headed into the official start of summer this week. Outstanding. And of course, we finally got some high 80s weather. Yes, we're finally there. We're going to meet the new teacher of the year, and she has props. Props are good. So take out your notes, because teachers teach. We're all still learning, right? We're learning about the immigration crisis on the border right now. We've had a long conversation about this now for seems like decades, but things have crystallized this weekend as more and more attention is brought to a head with children being separated from their families. Headlines like this are kind of dominating the news cycle, and Brian Stelter from CNN went in and took photos. The administration will tell you that's not a cage. Okay? It's not a cage, really. David Cicilline, our congressman in the 1st District, says he couldn't take photos, but saw dozens of kids by themselves in cages. Met a woman who hasn't seen her daughter in 2 days. This is not America. Yesterday, when he was down there, he spoke about it.
There's sort of an old, very long-standing proposition in the law in our country, and that is that when it comes to children, the decisions always have to be made in the best interest of the child. And there is no interpretation of that standard that would ever suggest separating young children from their mothers is in the best interest of a child. It may be in the best interest of a political strategy for the president or a negotiating technique, but it's really abominable. It's detestable.
Well, this is the big question. Is it a good negotiating technique, or is it going to explode or implode on the president? He's got some significant wackos in that administration in the White House who think this guy Steve Miller. He thinks this is like good stuff, right? There are people in that administration who believe that this is the way we ought to be doing business, and I think there's a whole bunch of things going on when it goes to the president's disposition, his divide and conquer approach. There are so many people who have chosen sides one way or the other. We got a real battle going on in terms of who the president is and how we feel about him. But when it comes to kids and families, that starts to, people start to, recalibrate this whole situation. It'll be really interesting to see if this is one of those things that brings a negative polling response to the president, because that's really all he reacts to. And how long this will go on, I don't know. How long the Democrats sit on their hands without rushing in saying, all right, let's fix this, I don't know. But there's blame to go all around, mostly with the White House. This is disgraceful. Most of us know it. And if you don't want to admit it, just look at your kids. All right, next item here at home. This has just been too ridiculous. Alan Fung, who was finally, in my mind, growing into at least a B+ candidate for governor, and perhaps giving Gina Raimondo a run should he get out of the primary, kind of tripped up here. Headline last week. Before we were able to, I think we touched on this on Thursday, the campaign wasn't cutting or didn't have cleared or didn't find payment on checks made to the Carpianato Group, a pretty well-established developer and the lead developer in Cranston. Nice little campaign digs that were not fully paid for, and maybe not at all in 2016. Alan Fung was on the radio with me the other day, and we talked about it. Now, this is Tim White's story, along with Ted Nesi and the Target 12 team. Tim updated this late Thursday. This is our first chance to comment on it.
A Target 12 investigation revealed Mayor Alan Fung's re-election campaign paid no rent for its 2016 headquarters at Chapel View. A spokesperson for Fung says Chapel View owner, the Carpianato Group, Cranston's top developer, failed to cash its rent checks. Now Fung says the campaign is going to cut new checks and tell the company to cash them this time.
It tells to me that they're circling the wagon and they're telling lies because they can't tell the truth.
Republican gubernatorial candidate Patricia Morgan says she may file a formal complaint with the Board of Elections, but says the state police should also investigate.
He received almost seriously, for pennies on a dollar, he received a very, very nice campaign headquarters. That is wrong.
On the other side, Democratic Governor Gina Raimondo also calling for election officials to investigate, saying in a statement, at the very least, it's clear that Mayor Fung is incompetent when it comes to his campaign's finances. On WPRO's Dan Yorke show Thursday, Fung admitted it was sloppy bookkeeping, insisting his campaign couldn't afford a professional accountant.
You raised $1 million in this campaign. What do you mean you can't afford a CPA?
It's tight. We're hiring a lot of boots on the ground to go knock on doors, to make calls, and we are going to take a look at absolutely, to see how much some of these firms might charge.
We did reach out to the Board of Elections to find out if there would be any formal review of these irregularities. We have not yet heard back.
It is the ultimate penny-wise and pound-foolish strategy on the part of Alan Fung. The bigger picture here is that the market value for this Carpignano piece of property is anywhere from $2,500 to $3,500 monthly. And even if he was paying properly, he was only paying $500. And Alan Fung suggests, well, this is kind of the political culture around here. Politicians get breaks. He also suggested that he's kind of challenged because nobody wants to house temporary campaigns in a rental space, which is complete bunk. The campaigns find places to be, maybe not the fancy places to be, but the places to be. This is an in-kind contribution problem that the Carpignano Group, who's been on this program on a number of occasions, and I really respect the work that they're doing, but they're going to have to check the way they do business, period. And Alan Fung still has some answers to give in terms of the in-kind contribution value, the disparity between what he's paying and what somebody else would pay. Big problem. In the meantime, Patricia Morgan couldn't help herself. She came on my radio the other day, the same day. Everybody picked this up. She said that Alan Fung was digging himself such a hole that he would be in China. It's why I say that Patricia Morgan also is not yet ready for prime time. Anyway, although she makes a good point about the money. The China comment, you figure it out. Last word on the local issues here. We have a budget pass in the House over the weekend. It's $9.68 billion. That's about a $2 billion growth in just a handful of years. But of course, as the Speaker will always tell you, it's a good budget.
It's a very pro-citizen, pro-business, pro-jobs in the economy budget, balances a lot of community needs. We restore a lot of money to the DD community, to hospitals, to home care workers. We provide a lot of incentives and tools for the Commerce Department to continue working on creating jobs and creating a better economy. It's a good budget.
It's always a good budget. Always a good, but like a good sandwich. Remember that Jewish rye commercial that they used to have in New York? Probably not. They didn't sell them up here. It was the greatest commercial ever. It's a good sandwich. It's a really, really good sandwich. Only New Yorkers will get that. In the meantime, PawSox hearing tomorrow, and it looks like this legislation, this bill for financing the new stadium, is not reflective of what the Speaker threw out last week as the only way he would get it done, which is for revenue bonds. I'm completely confused, so we'll follow that over the course of the next couple of days. Enough of that stuff. Let's talk to the Teacher of the Year. Headline. It's always a celebratory smile, and if you want a closer look at that piece of art on top of her head, here it is.
I'm elated and honored and humbled to have been chosen to represent such amazing people and students in the state. So, yeah, it's going to be a really journey of growth, and I'm looking forward to it.
It's always exciting, huh? Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Completely surprised?
I was surprised. It was a big STEAM assembly. So they had students that wrote STEAM poems, and they...
STEAM.
STEAM is science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. So
okay.
It's an integrated approach to teaching that tries to link multiple aspects of students' learning and understanding to make it applicable to real-world technology and life. So hook the kids when you can in every single possible way and make the connections with them. So
how do you hook kids these days?
Oh, well, you connect with them, you find out what they're interested in, and you somehow connect that with your curriculum and your standards, and there's always a way. So there's multiple pathways to get to different curricular areas, and then you find the way in and build on it.
How long have you been at this?
Oh, I like to say a couple of years, but I think it's been like 25. But it's gone really quickly, so it's never boring.
You enjoy every new September the same way you did the first?
I do, yes.
Isn't that kind of the key to happiness in the classroom?
It is, and it's important to bring that joy into the classroom and build on it yourself and with the students and really honor where they're coming from, so that you can work together and develop that collaborative experience in the classroom.
You're a middle school teacher.
Yes.
I'm told my kid works in middle schools, and she tells me that they're the most fascinating because they're 12 going on 30 and they're 12 going on 2 in 2-minute intervals, it seems, right? Sort of?
Yeah. I mean, they're still fascinated in the world around them. I think we all can be always fascinated in the world around us. And that's one of the joys of teaching science, too, that awe for the natural world is unending, and we're always learning, and we're always trying to discover new things. So tapping into that and that passion and that natural inquisitive nature that we all have to want to learn and want to find out and build things and make connections is, yeah, it's never boring.
All right, well, it's not going to be boring when we come back. We've got some props. Stay with us.
Blocking? Yes, you'll fix it. You're the pro.
Okay, I love it when our guests bring us their stuff, and we are a prop city. Where do you want me to do? Pull it closer?
Sure.
Okay.
I'm going to have you use
So Charlene Tuttle is
controls.
a teacher of the year from Jamestown's The Lawn School. It's a middle school, and one of the things that the story says is that you've taught the kids and built a program on how to build underwater vehicles, coding workshops. What is that?
Coding, computer coding. So there's a great, that actually ties in with some of the state initiatives now, CS4RI, Computer Science
And you're big
for
on the
Rhode Island.
environment. You've done some work with Roger Williams.
Absolutely. You're restoring the Rhode Island wild oyster. So, yeah, and I'm also working with DEM. They have a restoration program for wild salmon. So we raise the salmon eggs in the classroom and then release them in local rivers. So that's really neat, really trying to connect the students' learning to the real world so they can see impact of their learning and their own work and see that they can make a difference in the world.
So what is this stuff?
This is a sea perch. So it's an ROV, a remotely operated vehicle. And so this first came about, as I said, I always like to learn. So one of the things that I did a couple of years ago was I was a communications fellow on the exploration vessel, the Nautilus, Bob Ballard's exploration vessel.
Really?
Yeah, it was amazing. So that was in the Pacific Ocean. They're sailing right now again. So if anybody wants to tune in, it's nautiluslive.org, and you can follow along while they're diving and type questions and get real-time answers from the scientists and engineers. So just after I returned, a workshop came up through Newark to go to this building of remotely operated vehicles. So of course I took it, and then from that we had a grant, and then I started an after-school program to build these with the students, and then we integrated it into the curriculum. So it's been 2 years now, it's been in the curriculum as part of the 6th grade curriculum. And so what they do is they build these, and they actually have to solder the circuit board in the control box. So again, I like to collaborate, and we need to collaborate with people to really bring, again, real-time experts into the classroom. So we have I have a volunteer from Senedia, Patrick Burke, who comes every year, that has helped me from the beginning. And this year we got members of the radio club and engineers from Newark that helped to solder, because I am not a soldering expert, but they are. And so now all the students have these remotely operated vehicles. So you can play around with it if you want. So we did a couple of things with them. We have a, so this is the control box. So there are 3 motors. One is, so these 2 are right and left. You can play around with those. And so one goes forward and back. So
Is
you
it going to move?
Well, you have to put it in the water. Yeah,
Duh.
it's got to be in the water. Yeah.
Okay.
So if I had time, I would have brought you a tank too. But and so we actually collaborate with another organization, the Connecticut Island Sailing Foundation, who loaned us this year for the first time. We have these cameras. So one of the things we did, we tested in a pool. just locally so the kids could practice flying. It's called flying when you drive them underwater. And then the YMCA in Middletown donated their space, so we went a couple of days and the fleet of children came with their ROVs and they had challenges they have to meet underwater. So for example, lifting a ring, so they have to re-engineer their ROV. So they're given the challenge ahead of time so they know more or less what they have to do, as if they're underwater in the bottom of the ocean, like real ocean explorers, and they have a goal. So they want to collect a sample, for example, and put it in their bucket. And so while they're on the spot, they may have to revise to meet the challenge. And then, as I was mentioning, then our last thing we're doing this year, 2 of the 3 groups have done them, we're going to do the last one this week, is to go to the local estuary and then put this in the estuary so then they can, now it's equipped to a camera and you can see there's a live feed so they can see what they're seeing in Narragansett Bay underwater. So they can see, for example, mussels feeding, so they can see the cilia of the mussels feeding. So it's really exciting because it may as well be at the bottom of the ocean, because it's really exciting when they actually see an organism underwater and they see it in its natural habitat, and again, that fascination for the real world, and they're making a connection with the world around them.
So they use the monitor to see the underwater activity.
Correct, yes.
Yeah. This is just a basic monitor.
Right, and it's all tethered.
Color monitor, it's all tethered together.
So it's about 50-foot cord, so you know, you do it right from the shore or a dock or a boat.
And what class is this happening in?
Science.
Science.
Yeah, yeah. And again, if we think of science as as everything really, but it's STEAM, so you have your science, your technology, again, we're also looking at the Nautilus along the way throughout the year whenever they're diving, so they can see the technology that's happening in real life at the bottom of the ocean and what we're trying to learn in our ocean, and how we can use tools.
Each of the students are building one of these things?
They do it in groups, small groups from 2 to 4 usually.
Gotcha.
And then they actually solder the motors as well, and they learn about the workings of motors, and then they have to troubleshoot.
Engaged, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, they're like fully engaged in it.
Yes.
Like they can't wait to come to class to keep working on it.
Yes.
How long does it take to put one of these things together?
Months. We do it once a week usually. So when I did it first in the after-school program, we did it, you know, every week until it was done. But in the course of a day, it's basically 1 day a week. This year, that's how I did it. And so they'll have one period, and we have something called a makerspace, which is basically a room that we have a drill press, we have work tables, we have workbenches, and hand drills, and we have soldering irons now. So we go to that space, which is nice because this doesn't take over the classroom, because there are other things that we're doing at the same time. But yeah, so we'll go once a week. That's what we did this year, and then until they're done.
Do you think the experience of this will awaken a student to an orientation of this kind of profession, occupation?
Yes. I think it opens new doors for them.
Right. It's not just textbooks and theory and everything else. You're making them, you're engaging them to put their hands on and to build something.
And then they want to read the book. Then they want to say, oh, let me go read about that mussel. In fact, there's a Save the Bay book.
Yeah.
It's a field guide that Save the Bay puts out.
Right.
And then they want to identify what they saw. So then they have a purpose for reading. They made a connection because they discovered it, in a sense, in their own backyard or in the native waters of Rhode Island. So yeah, it really sets a purpose. It sort of makes the why come to life. And then when they can talk to scientists and engineers that are doing it at the same time, and having people come in from the outside, it makes it real. It's not just in your 4 walls. You know, science learning is the world.
There's wondering why we might have a Teacher of the Year here. It's amazing. Final thoughts on education when we come back. Stay with us. So there's some of the ceremony where Charlene is named Teacher of the Year, and I'm always affected by the energy the kids have for their teacher being named for this award. There seems to be so much joy, no matter where the school is, the relationship between, and there's the first gentleman right there. They were thrilled for you, right?
Yes, they were.
Yeah.
Yeah. The whole school, colleagues and students, it's a really collaborative, supportive place to work, and nobody can ever do it alone. So one of the reasons we're successful in what in our ability to take risks and try innovative things is because we have the support of each other in the administration. So the kids just run with it, and I think children can see when you're really trying to do something that benefits them.
So you're still a young teacher, but
Yeah,
your advice
absolutely.
for young teachers is when they come in, what?
Be authentic and keep learning in every way that you possibly can, because that's what those opportunities that arise can lead you on paths that you didn't even think about before and end up becoming a whole new program. So really following the threads of new learning. And it also models for the children how you're always learning and how you struggle when you learn. We ask our students to do that every day. So it's good for them to see us grapple with new ideas and become experts in certain things.
How are the kids changing?
How are the kids changing? You mean overall? Well, they're definitely more engaged with the world through technology because they have access to so much information now. And so one of the challenges is really helping them decipher where the information is coming from.
You find they're distracted a lot?
No, I think it depends on what you have in front of them and what they're engaged in. I mean, we can all be distracted at times, but
I just think the technology, and we're talking with educators about this for years, that there's so much more of a horizontal attention span than a vertical one. There's so much that they can experience technically, and so and everybody, even in the news world, adults and everything else, can see so many different places to learn something, but don't spend a lot of time digging deep.
Right.
You find that to be the case?
Yeah,
this makes them dig deep.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's easy to click on an icon and another one, but then again, to try to be a critical thinker and to go to read beyond the headline, so to speak, and really see where the information is coming from, what the questions you have, being critical of what you're presented with, is a key skill that's going to really serve them as they move through the world as consumers and citizens and scientists and engineers and politicians. And
do you see veteran teachers who miss it when they get tired or feeling a little burnt out? What's the teacher room like when you're hanging with somebody who just says, you know what, these kids are too much? And it happens.
Yeah, we all have days like, whoa, what happened in that lesson?
Right.
But again, really being able to, you asked about new teachers. I think the same is true for veteran teachers. Like, how do we replenish ourselves? How do we see the value in our work? Where do we see the difference that you're making? And it can be in small moments when the child says, oh, like, I really didn't care about the root, but I really don't want to stop now. I want to look at that stem. I want to look at that root. I don't want to stop. And I didn't care when we started.
It's another experiment here. Actually, you can't see anything because the things are green and our wall is green. You see it as blue and red, but it did go away. That's really weird. You should show them
cool
that.
If we could do a blue and red one.
Well, you should show them that. Remember that plant, kids? The plant didn't show up because the wall was green.
We have a little green screen in the makerspace actually, so maybe we can try it this week.
Technology there.
Yes.
You will compete, I guess, for the National Teacher of the Year. Do you have to do something for that, or you just kind of?
I just got the application today, so I met with Mary Keenan from the Department of Ed, just as an overview of next year's tasks, and that was one of the things in the packet. So I'll look at that more closely this summer and see what I have to do.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Love your energy.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Kids are lucky. Final word when we come back.
Thank you.
So coming up tomorrow night, Mark Janess is back from overseas. He is our Naval War College, one of the leading Naval War College thought leaders here on this program on things like North Korea, which we really haven't broken down. Feels like a month ago that Kim Jong-un met with the president. It was only a week ago. Amazing. Talk to you on the radio tomorrow at 3, back here tomorrow night. Thanks for watching. Bye.